2025. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ordinarily, we only have invocations at our second meeting of the month, but it is on the agenda. I don't have anything prepared specifically, so I do ask that we just take a moment of quiet reflection before we start the meeting. Thank you. All right, Ms. Brown, if you'd take roll.
Mr. Gleaves?
Present.
Mr. Jacobs?
Present.
Ms. McFarland?
Present.
Mrs. Salva-Meiska?
Present.
Mr. Vanover?
Present.
Mrs. Webster? Mr. Anderson?
Present. Before we get to meetings, Council, we have a bit of business we need to take care of in terms of the agenda. Administration has asked if we could add an executive session to our agenda tonight. So at this point, the chair is open for a motion to add executive session under item 9B for economic development.
I would like to amend the agenda to add an executive session after ordinance 39/2025 and 9B.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion about the agenda change? All right. All those in favor of approving the agenda change signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. The agenda has been updated. We'll add that as item 9B, executive session for economic development. All right. Moving right along. Next up, we have minutes. Council, in your packet, you had the minutes for the August 20th, 2025 meeting. In your packet, what is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as published signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are approved with 7 affirmative votes. All right, now that we got that business out of the way, we can move on to, I think, the most exciting part of the meeting, which is presentations. First up on the agenda, we have a presentation from Alice Cardona. It's a Girl Scouts Silver Award project at Ross Park. Administration, did you have anything else to add before we have Ms. Cardona's come up?
Not before, but after.
All right. In that case, Ms. Cardona, if you want to come up to the podium, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Okay. My name is Alice Cardona. I completed a project called the Silver Award for Girl Scouts, which allows Scouts to help the community in some way. My project was focused on rejuvenating Ross Park. This project is completed by Girl Scouts before the 9th grade. Because I'm a Juliet, a Scout that's not in a troop, I had to rely on the help of volunteers and support from my family and the community. I chose to do my project on a park because of my love for the outdoors. To start, I noticed that some of our smaller neighborhood parks weren't being used as much, and they appeared a bit overlooked and outdated, and I wanted to see what could be done. This past February, my mom and I contacted Charlie Wilson, Director of Parks and Recreation at Springdale, and he agreed to be an advisor to this project. I was also able to connect with an advisor at the Girl Scout Council for guidance. I used the comprehensive plan as a guide for what mattered most to the residents of Springdale. I asked some of my neighbors about improvements they wanted to see at Ross Park and compared their feedback with my own observations. Then I collaborated with Charlie about some completed and upcoming improvements done to Ross and to the other parks in the area. I chose Hilda Ross Memorial Park because I grew up near the park, and over time I had noticed that the usage has gone down. I also noticed that there were some broken and outdated amenities. I wanted to make an impact by renovating it and giving it more visual appeal. I presented my proposal plan to Mayor Hawkins, Mr. Uhl, and Ms. Morgan in April. I then received the approval for this project from the mayor, which meant I could get to work. We decided to narrow the project down to 4 phases before we began working. The first phase was the 3,000 square foot pollinator garden in which more than 200 native flowers were planted. Cardboard was laid down on the grassy area, and the whole area was mulched. All the plants were donated by members of the community, and I learned so much from the guidance of Brandy Blaylock, a volunteer naturalist that helped me with this space. With the help of volunteers from the Springdale Nazarene Church and other members of the community, this huge garden was completed in May. Thanks to Springdale Parks and Recreation, a lovely bench was installed. The second phase of my project was to work on the playground, since the paint was peeling and flaking off rather badly. A few volunteers, my family and I, scraped the paint off and added a fresh coat of paint to all of the metal structures of the playground and swing set. The third phase of my project was to design and install some signs at the park. With the help of Matt Beatty, I designed a park map showing all of the park's amenities, a trail map, and an informative pollinator garden sign that has a QR code to direct people wanting to learn more about native gardens. My dad helped me to install trail markers at each of the entrances to the trails. The fourth and final phase of this project focused on the miscellaneous amenities at the park. SOS very generously donated a little free library with a registered charter sign, and the Springdale Parks and Recreation crew installed 2 benches to the park. Thanks to the crew at the Parks and Recreation Department, they took down a broken wooden bench and the no longer used baseball fencing, which created a more open space in the field. It has already been very heartening to see visitors come to the park after all the work completed. There are several community engagement events scheduled at the park, including the ribbon cutting ceremony on September 8th, quarterly park cleanup days, and a pollinator garden how-to workshop on September 28th. Residents are encouraged to drop off any book donations to the free library. This project would not have been possible without the help of so many people in our community and this administration. Thank you, Mayor Hawkins, for allowing the project to proceed, and I hope to see all of you at the newly renovated Ross Park. Thank you for your time.
Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Alice, you've done an amazing job. This is like 4 projects all in one. And we've seen a couple different Eagle Scouts come through. Any one of these phases by itself would have been a project unto itself. As a result of all your time, effort, and hard work, I have a proclamation for you I'd like to read at this time. Whereas Alice Cardona has diligently served in the Girl Scouts of Western Ohio for the past 4 years, and whereas after embarking on a vision of improvement and accessibility for park goers in the Springdale community, Alice dedicated over 50 hours to the revitalization of Springdale's Ross Park. And whereas Alice led the comprehensive 4-phase summer project at Ross Park focused on environmental stewardship, community engagement, and accessibility. And whereas Alice's efforts included extensive planning, coordination with Springdale Parks and Recreation staff, fundraising, and hands-on implementation. And whereas the Ross Park enhancements and improvements include a designed and installed pollinator garden to support local ecosystems and beautify the park, a refurbished playground and swing set completed by chipping away old paint, sanding, and repainting the structures to ensure safety and visual appeal, enhanced park navigation and education with the installation of park and trail maps, trail markers, and informational garden sign. And thanks to the generous donation from SOS, a little free library was installed to promote literacy and community connection. And in partnership with Springdale Parks crew, the installation of 2 new benches and the removal of outdated ball field fencing. And whereas Alice's project has been recognized to receive the Girl Scout Silver Award from the Girl Scouts of Western Ohio, and whereas Alice's initiative, leadership, and community stewardship is inspiring and serves as a role model to our youth. And whereas it is my great honor to issue this proclamation, now therefore I, Lawrence C. Hawkins III, Mayor of the City of Springdale, do hereby proclaim September 3rd, 2025, Alice Cardona Day.
I see some very proud parents and family in the audience.
Over 100 hours.
So Alice and I, we go way back to coaching Little League soccer, so I can't hold her like that anymore. But excellent work. We appreciate all that you've done.
I don't want to, but we will continue to move along. Again, thank you, Alice, and family, and all the community that rallied to help to make that happen. It's really a great work you did. All right, next up on the agenda, we have an announcement and presentation from Public Works. Mr. Yule, did you have something to start then?
I do. Thank you, Mr. President. First off, I would just like to introduce Mr. Kevin McKinney. He is our new Director of Public Works and started with us on June the 30th this year. Mr. McKinney comes to the city of Springdale with 25 years of local government experience. His most recent experience comes from the city of Miamisburg. He has served in various capacities, working in parks, facilities, public works, and utilities. Kevin is a graduate of the University of Cincinnati with a bachelor's in horticulture and has completed several leadership training courses with the University of Dayton. He is an internationally certified arborist and holds several certifications in public works and parks and recreation disciplines. Kevin and his wife, Mackenzie, enjoy spending time with their kids, Ella and Evan, going to sporting events, watching movies, playing with their dog, Quinn, and trying new restaurants. Members of council, Kevin McKinney.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mayor Hawkins, President Council Anderson, and council. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I am very excited that I had the opportunity to join this team. The city of Springdale, I've been around since I was a kid. I can remember coming down here, and still today. So very happy to be on the team, very happy to be in the community, and happy to be here with you all tonight to kind of tell you what we've been up to and where we're going as it relates to streets and sidewalk programs. So some of what we do in our world is maintenance related. So we do maintenance related topics by using industry standards to help prolong the life of our hardscape infrastructures. So with that, we actively work on our asphalt programs and our concrete programs. So with our asphalt programs, we have a lot of tools in our toolbox that will help us keep maintenance on our new infrastructure and our aging infrastructure. With that, we use some technology and we use field inspections with staff. So some of the technologies that we have a program called Pavement Condition Index. So what that is, it's a 0 to 100 scale, 0 obviously being not so good, and 100 being you're amazing. So, and that's kind of built into 3 types of sections. We have this 0 to 30, that's when you got to rebuild everything, total ground up. And then you have this 30 to 80, that's where you're grinding off the street, you're doing mill and overlay, and maybe some base work, but mainly you're eliminating that top surface. And then there's this third section that's 80 and up to the 100, and that's kind of your maintenance section. I am happy to report that our PCI is, for the city, is at an 89. So we are doing a very good job of maintaining and staying up on our infrastructure improvements. So, but since we're in that maintenance area, you've probably seen us out in 2025 and in years past, and in future years, we will be maintaining our investments. And we do that by several different applications in the asphalt world. A rejuvenator product, this would happen this year, the big area was up in Beacon Hills. We put a coat on with some light aggregate, and what that does is kind of just seal in all the little impurities, kind of revitalizes elements that were lost during the cooking process of making asphalt. So we did that, and typically we do that here in the city on a new road and 5 years after. And this started in 2023 for the city. And typically we will do these applications in low volume, low speed areas, so neighborhoods where it's got light traffic. And then beyond that, some of the other applications we do to kind of seal up our surfaces is crack sealing. We did a lot of that this year. We were in 3 major areas, Beacon Hills, Oxford Hills, and Heritage Hill. And that's the black lines on the road, right? So we're trying to shore up all that cracking to prevent water penetration into the surface, allow us to expand that life cycle. And then in our kind of industrial, commercial, and connector road areas, we do something, a combination of a fiber mat and cape seal. So this year we did that in Kemper Commons. So what we do is we put down a fiber mat first, which is an emulsion and a small aggregate. And what that does is level it out from rutting, some pavement cracking, larger cracks that crack seal doesn't get, and potholing. And then what we do, we come through and we put this cape seal right on top. And that provides us a new wearing course for motorists on a nice smooth surface. And then after that, we do your typical stuff that you see around that every community does. We do pavement marking, whether that's with paint or with a thermo. You might have seen some of that around the city recently. We've done that in the past couple of weeks with the white lines and the yellow lines, and we'll be out freshening up some of the turn lane arrows also. And then our good old pothole repairs. So we use a spray patch, which again is an emulsion with a thicker aggregate. And we fill up the holes in layers and joints and larger cracking that the crack sealing doesn't take, and creating that good ride for the vehicular traffic. And then obviously the last thing after we get out of the maintenance piece of this is that mill and overlay, right? Where we got to take off the whole layer and then add it back. So that's kind of our world in the asphalt program for maintenance. And then we have this concrete piece of it that's sidewalks and really your curb and gutters, catch basins, everything kind of related above ground for stormwater management. So our sidewalks, we kind of do that in 2 phases. There are 2 types of applications. We do a grinding, which we did that this year in Heritage Hill. And what that does, what that's intended to do is the sidewalk block from edge to edge is in good condition. It's not failing. It's just raised up a little bit, creating a tripping hazard. So we go in and we grind that down. And this year, I think we did 282 of those in Heritage Hill. And then basically, it's eliminating a hazard for pedestrians. And then when we get into sidewalk replacement, that's when we have total failure. There's no, we got to cut it from the edge to edge, remove that block, put that block back, or several blocks in some cases. So, and that kind of is the same thought process with our curbing. So we do curbing in 10-foot sections. We try to do that in 10-foot sections, and we base that on in-field inspections with staff and the residents that help us out with identifying some of these areas. So we rely heavily on feedback from the community with the concrete program. And then along with that is catch basin repair. We don't have a lot of failures in our catch basins. I was able to find 1 so far since being here. And we will be addressing it, but all those programs will be happening later on this year still. So that's where we're at with kind of what's in our toolbox. So again, I touched on some of this, but this is kind of where we've been this year with our asphalt program. The Rejuvenator, we also did Old Gate and Landon. We talked about the crack sealing and the cape seal and the fiber mat and the pavement markings. We've been in and around the mall area. We did right out here, Webster Way, and other various locations. And then pothole repairs. We don't have a lot, so they're spread out, so this is multiple locations. And then this is kind of just some pictures of what residents may have seen out there. This is the Rejuvenator. in Beacon Hills, again, it's that light coat that goes on with some small aggregate. And then we can do the crack seal. You can see the black lines on the road. And then this is Kemper Commons. So on the left, this is us putting the aggregate down. And then when we went back through and put the wearing course on the Cape Seal, it pretty much looks like a brand new road. So we do this on the areas that are like 20 to 30 years in length already, and we can gain about an additional 10 years with this maintenance. So, and again, this is a pothole thing. So if you see it like that, that's us filling potholes. And then there's the map we went off of this year. Some of them are just potholes. We also kind of do that mix in small curb areas that kind of come apart and they're not fully ready for replacement, but we want to stay on top of it, especially going into snow season with our plows out there. We really don't want to, we want that more smooth ride and eliminate those hazards. And then again, this is some of our fresh line striping out there and the map that we went off of for 2025. And as far as our concrete, where we've been at this year, as we talked about, we did a phase 1 in Heritage Hill. And then right now we are confirming that list for the sidewalk replacements, catch basins, and curbing in the city. So that work is still yet to come this year. And also, again, just for the grinding piece of it, this is what we're looking for. Like it's just got that little lip from about a ½ inch up to 2 inches. Anything above 2 inches is really kind of popping it all out of the ground. Our concrete's only 5 inches thick, so if we're above that, we're essentially halfway out of the ground. So at that point, we're going to do replacements. And then this is the grinding map for the sidewalks in the Heritage Hill. So obviously, the green section we did this year. Next year, we'll do the blue section, which again is about 278 spots. And then, so this is our replacement. So that you can see significantly the difference. So we have a lot of cracking on this one, and then total deterioration on that one. So that's when there's no saving it. We got to dig it up and start over. And then again, this is the one catch basin I found so far. Probably a little hole in the box, the block box that's underneath the curb here. We'll repair this whole section and get that back up. Okay, so some proposed areas that we're doing for 2026. Again, with the crack sealing, we're looking at Springfield Pike from Cameron to Sharon, Strategic Way, Crossings Court, Merchant Street, Boggs Lane. Some of these roads are in areas that are combined, and that's kind of what we do with our crack seal program. We know we have sporadic like potholes around the city. We don't just jump. We tackle whole areas at once. So like a whole neighborhood, like this year was 3 whole areas of the city. So that's kind of the thought process behind some of this also. And then again, with the fiber mat and the Cape Seal, we're looking to finish up that entire area up there in the Kemper Commons vicinity. And then every year we will always address pavement markings. We always want to kind of keep those fresh for motors. And then we're evaluating if we have some spots for some mill and overlays that we haven't quite nailed down yet. And then as far as our concrete program, we do know proposed we're going to finish Heritage Hill for the tripping hazards. We are looking to get into District 2 the following year and then finish up some areas off Ray Nourish and the year after that. So at that point, we have gone through the entire city with the grinding program for the sidewalks. And then with that, we will always be yearly analyzing concrete needs as far as sidewalks, catch basins, curbing will always be evaluated. And then anytime we do a full-fledged road rebuild, we will always evaluate that into that project. And along with that, I understand that sometimes we can be disturbing. So we try not to be, but we have to use large equipment, and we have to take up whole lanes at a time, and it's not the best for everybody. So historically, we've put out no parking signs, right? But that's 24 hours in advance, and that will still happen. But current mechanisms that we use, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram with these notices. But then we kind of dove deeper and thought, how else do we communicate this to our community? So we created a web link within our Public Works page. It's called Community Notifications. And essentially, someone can find out in their area what's happening. So on this page, it's not meant for like the Northlands, or if we get back on Kemper, these are short-term kind of, issues in your area that could cause impacts or delays in you getting home or getting out. For residents, and kind of tell them kind of three main things. A, why we're there, when will we be there, and how long are we going to be there? So we are going to be more proactive in telling the community what is happening. And so another mechanism, so then we thought, well, how do we actually get them to our website, right? I'm sure not everybody just hangs out on the Public Works website, but I do, but no one else probably does. But so anyways, so then we created this sign thought process. And with this sign process, it'll pretty much go in the entrance of the neighborhood. So say Beacon Hills again. We did a lot of work up there. There's 2 entrances to that neighborhood. We put this sign at each entrance. And and on the sign has a QR code. And you can zap that QR code that sends you straight to our community notifications. It tells you exactly what's happening. So essentially, when one of these projects happens, a community member comes home or in and out of their area, and they see that sign. That sign indicates that we're about to be there. So when we know that's going to happen, we will put these signs out, and when it's done, we remove the signs. And then also on the sign, we have our phone number, and we're always happy to talk with the folks and answer any questions or concerns they may have. So, so those are all new. We haven't actually done it yet because we don't have any active projects. So, but if you go on our webpage here, I should have zoomed in, but right down here is our community notifications, and it tells you all the things, and there are no current community notifications. So, and then here's a mock-up of our sign. So if you see this in your area, attention, we're coming to help out, okay? We want to try to keep that 89, and this will be used for lots of temporary inconveniences. So if we do a lot of tree work in an area, this is going to go up. Mainly it's road things, but trees can also cause an issue with blocking. So yeah, and then again, on that sign, our phone number, feel free to call us. We're going to be here. So, but before I leave tonight, I do want to, because this week's been a very active week, actually the past couple of weeks have been a very active week down at Northland. So if you haven't been down there, we've been laying asphalt overnight, last night. And a lot of the concrete work is being done as far as curbing in the street. And I know they're doing driveways now. I think they finished half of the Public Works facility, and they did the other entrance to Domino's today. So we are moving. But kind of our timeline, 20,000 feet up. We're finishing our curbing in our bus stops right now. So a lot of the bus pads are there. Some utility work, that base layer of asphalt's going down. And we're starting our sidewalks. So those are being dug up. We just haven't formed those up yet. We're prioritizing the street. So before winter time, hopefully we will have traveling lanes for Northland. So getting us into 2026, the stuff that needs to be finished up is kind of that eye candy. So it's that median work, it's the stormwater, it's the landscaping, it's that final layer of asphalt, street signage, pavement markings, and then basically this time next year, it'll be complete. So I know that's been a long time coming, and a lot's happened even since I've been here. So, but they've been doing a great job, and they've been very informative for all of us. So that's it. Again, I appreciate you all having me here tonight. Just love being a part of this team already. Everybody's been great, and been happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the presentation. Ask Kevin to come out and speak at the meeting because there have been a couple calls, and some elected officials may have gotten some calls too regarding what's going on in different places in the city, regarding our roads, some of the street maintenance, as well as some of the sidewalk grinding. And so thought that it would be helpful for residents and elected officials to get to hear a breakdown of what's going on right now as well as what's planning on in the future. The main thing is we work to go through the entire city. It takes time. It's not something we do every year. I think you go back before 2009, we probably had a street budget of $750 to $1.1, $1.2 million. Those things have gone by the wayside. So we've gone through and we've adjusted. We're catching back up to those things. But want everybody to understand what that process looks like. And again, just like Mr. McKinney said, if folks have questions, if residents have questions, don't hesitate to call.
Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a hindsight look back. I'm in Heritage Hill, and the contractor was either overzealous in his sign marking or underworking this year. And there was a lot where we had streets, no parking on the streets, which it's narrow to start with, and nothing happened for 2 or 3 days. And so when we get back into it, work with the contractor and get a more realistic timetable on how it's going to play out, because and Heritage Hill is a choke point. The streets are small. Some of the other neighborhoods are the same situation. I've got a couple catch basins. I'll give Mr. Yule the locations, and there's one that looked like they dug out for grind and overlay, and it's still sitting there. So I'll get those locations to him, and we'll go on. But welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, well, let me just say this too. Welcome again, Mr. McKinney. We're glad you're here. I've always thought Public Works is one of those legs of the stool that just doesn't get as much attention as police and fire. They're all important to our city. I truly appreciate the work that goes into and the passion that comes with somebody who can talk about hardscape for 20 minutes without missing a beat. I do want to highlight, though, that sidewalk program you talked about is a unique thing for Springdale that I don't think enough residents realize is unique. People who have lived here their entire lives don't realize that in so many parts of our region, the homeowner's responsible for the sidewalk that's in front of their house. So the city just comes by and marks it, and then you have to take care of it, right? And that's thousands of dollars that is just part of the services the city offers. So when you talk about 200 some squares, that's 200 some squares that the city has managed to include as part of our base taxes as public works service. And it really does make a difference to the day-to-day life of homeowners who already spend too much of their money on property taxes. So thank you for keeping our streets at 89, and we look forward to that ribbon cutting in Northland Boulevard next year. We're going to hold you to that August date.
Yeah,
so.
I'm going to hold them to it.
All right, thank you, Mr. McKinney.
Thank you.
That's it. All right.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Next, we have communications. Ms. Bowder, are there any communications this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We do have another liquor permit request processing for Wawa. This is for a C1. Previously, you saw a C2. So, and there are no objections, of course, to a location under construction. So we'll get that filed for you unless there's any other feedback.
Council, this is one of those things we don't vote on, but if you have a concern about the liquor permit transferring, this is your opportunity to raise those objections. All right, hearing none, we go ahead and file that. Thank you. All right. Next, we'll move on to communications to the audience. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience that would like to address council for any reason. You simply need to come forward to the podium, state your name and address, and then you can speak to council for up to 5 minutes. The floor is now open for communications from the audience.
My name is Doyle Webster, 12142 Peak Drive, Springdale, Ohio. I got several items I'd like to talk to you this evening about. First and foremost, I want to say thanks to the city for taking care of Webster Way out there, because I was really worried about that. And so I can rest easy now for another year. Webster Way is in good shape. Secondly, just want to say SOS was very proud and happy to contribute to the Girl Scout project in Ross Park. It looks really nice. I'm anxious to see that. So I'm sure it's that's an old park, probably the oldest park in the city, I would guess. And so it's way overdue for some rehab work. Okay, the main reason I'm here tonight is I want to talk to you about Ordinance 30, the Rita project. I have some grave reservations about that, and I'm not questioning administration. I'm sure the project has come highly recommended to them, but I really am concerned that we're doing this at a time where we don't have a finance director. We're still trying to recruit one. I'm concerned about many different things. First off is the confidentiality that we've treasured in that tax department since I took over in 1971, and Mr. Knox and Mrs. McNear followed me in that office, and I think as I look back over the 52 years, I can't think of a single time where there's any information was ever leaked out of that tax department about any taxpayer, individual or corporately, and I just it gives me the willies to think about we're gonna just give her files to this Rita company or agency, and hope that they don't get hacked or something, or somebody can get in there. And then when I read the literature that was passed out at the last meeting, I see where you don't need a password to file your return. You don't need a password to make a payment. So they're touting that as positives. To me raises some red flags. That hey, guys, are you sure everything is copacetic here? And so it just seems like it raises concern. And the biggest concern is the fact that a few years ago, the governor, Governor DeWine, wanted to pull all income tax collections from throughout the state, pull them into Columbus, then Columbus would decide what each taxing district gets returned to them. Sound enticing? I just think this makes it a lot easier if once you give up those files, give up those records, it's a heck of a lot easier for the state government to come in and take that over. And I just think this puts us one step closer to that environment. Lastly, cost-wise, I'm very concerned the city enters into a contract that it might be somewhere between $208 and $230. Well, when are they going to determine how much it is? And then reading through the brochure that, okay, that's an annual fee you're going to pay. In addition to that, at a cost of $606,894 was shared among participating members for the legal program. And then in another section, the participating communities shared is $196,682 to issue subpoenas. I mean, there's a lot of nickel-dime stuff here, which at the end of the day could add up to a lot of money for the city. And I just think we've had a very excellent tax department over there for many years, and I hate to see anything happen to that. And I'm really, would like to see us take a pause here on this, make sure we get a good, competent finance director who's got some background and maybe some experience in this area, and before we make the leap into that. Thank you very much.
Did anyone want to respond to that? Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate the comments from you, Mayor Webster. Want to make sure everyone's aware, again, this is not something where we're getting rid of our tax department. It would be using RITA as a tool. The primary benefit that we would get from RITA, if council decides to go down that road, would be some more resources with regard to being able to go and collect on some of the tax dollars that we may not be getting. That's the primary benefit from it. Again, we're not shutting down a tax department. If someone came in during tax season or any other time, they're going to have the same resources afforded to them right here in person as they always would. The only difference was they'd have another tool they could use if they're filing online, and we would have another tool to be able to go and try to collect some dollars. The estimate that we're projecting based on past numbers of what we may be able to get from additional tax dollars is somewhere between $600,000 and $700,000. So there's an incentive with regard to that. I have no interest in abdicating our powers, as we talked about before with regard to Columbus. That's a terrible idea because we'll never get our money back from Columbus. And as we get deeper into it, I'll let Mr. Yule speak to the process, but the beginning part of the process is there need to be approval from council to go through an application with regard to the Board of Governors, Regional Council of Governors, and then we go through the process in more detail from there. But it's a step. Do you want, with regard to the tax commissioner, finance director, we have had a consultant that's been with us for a number of months now that's helped going through audits, it's helped come through. She's here on a weekly basis. She's working out of a private firm, but she's worked publicly in that role for other municipalities before. I would love it if she decided that she didn't want to be in the private sector and come back to the public sector. But we have somebody that's been engaged and involved on a regular basis with us, who's highly talented, highly skilled, would be able to go to a number of different municipalities if she wanted to, as a finance director, tax commissioner, who's also been in a position giving us advice. So it's another opportunity, it's another tool. Council can make that decision if they want to. I appreciate the concerns, and they're all legitimate concerns, but just wanted to give that feedback. Thank you.
Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just to kind of answer a couple of the other questions you had, the creation of an account with supplying a password, that allows the taxpayer to go in and look at past filings that they file through RITA. To not have a password associated with your filing of taxes doesn't mean your information is less secure. It just means you're not creating an accessible account for you as the taxpayer. So it's similar to online checkout at a online retailer, where you can create an account or you don't have to. Either way, the information is still secure, but you could go back to look at prior tax filings and documents that would be accessible to you. They serve roughly 400 jurisdictions throughout the state of Ohio. They're in 81 out of 88 counties, and they processed in 2023 $2.3 billion worth of tax payments. So again, we're looking at RITA as a partnership. This isn't a takeover. This is just utilizing their services, their extended reach. They are tied in directly to the IRS. So we'll know if people move out of Springdale into another state, we'll know where they're at to be able to collect what we're entitled to for Springdale taxes. And then their software allows for online filing, online payments, payment plans, and whatnot. So there's still plenty of work for our tax folks to do. And again, if nobody was any the wiser on this transition between our tax department in Rita and they still walk into our offices, you still have the ability to pay as you always paid. Our tax department folks can file your taxes for you on behalf of the city. They can accept payments. They can set up those payment plans. So it's just an extension of our services to really enhance how we collect taxes, to make it a little more convenient to the taxpayer.
And it's just a note for us at council, we'll still have the opportunity to ask questions, to deliberate on the item when we get to that in ordinances. We're still in communications from the audience. Floor is still open.
For those of you that used to see me running all over the city of Springdale, obviously I can't do that anymore.
You're fine, Mr. Knox. We can wait.
I'm Edward Knox. I should say Edward F. Knox. My son, Edward J. Knox, lives on the east side of town. I live at 881 York Haven Road in the city of Springdale, of course. I'm going to be brief. I'm going to stick to the things that I talked or presented to the joint committee up in Columbus. I was against Rita after I first saw it because, first of all, the state was going to establish it. They were going to spend $5 to $6 million to do that. And if I might reiterate what Mayor Webster said, you lose control when you have things go out of your hands. The Rita is a wholly owned creature by the state of Ohio. They might not make it look that way, but it is. And that is not a good thing. The other problem I had with Rita is the contract. Is there any place in the contract where there's a penalty clause if they don't pay us when they should, or they send us the wrong amount of money? That question, so I've asked so far, I haven't gotten an answer on it. We could get into dire straits. If the state got into dire straits, we could get into dire straits. So that should really be looked at. And since I can only stand for a little while, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Knox.
Oh, I will be followed by the other person who served in this position, which I had the great honor to be there for 12 years.
Mr. Yule?
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. Knox, I appreciate your the conversation and the comments. The contract will be delivered after Rita accepts us. They haven't accepted us as a partner to the Regional Council of Governments. They are an independent board. We as a member, if they accept us, if council votes to approve this and we become a member of the Regional Council of Governments, we can run for a position to have a representative on their board. As far as the specific language for penalties on non-payment, I don't think that they would have 400 jurisdictions within their purview if they weren't making prompt payments. And to answer a question before that Mayor Webster had regarding the amount is a percentage based on the amount collected. So that was a range based upon what we collected back in 2023, I believe. So they were providing that range so we could kind of plan accordingly, but that's what they estimated that we could anticipate.
Floor is still open. If anyone else would like to address council for any reason.
Good evening, everyone. Kathy McNear, 12090 Springdale Lake Drive. It's nice to see all of you again. Well, change is inevitable and it's necessary. Just look at this council chamber. It looks incredible. Good job, Brian and Stephanie. However, if we didn't change, we would still be using the paper ledgers that we had when I went into the office, and Mr. Knox and Doyle Webster, former Mayor Webster, and prior to that, my teacher at Princeton High School, who was George McNeil, who was also the clerk of council, finance director. Actually, I think he was just the clerk. Is that right, Doyle? He was just the clerk. So that's how I learned about Springdale politics. But I do have some concerns I wanted to bring tonight. I think that Rita has some very enticing tools that the city could definitely use. But, you know, I still have that control freak in me that says I don't want to turn anything over to the state. So I know that that has to be controlled in several different ways, and I assume that the city, and I have confidence that the city will make sure that that happens if this contract does go through. I do have a couple of questions. I read about the call center. People will be able to call into the call center, and I was a former call center manager both domestically and internationally, so obviously I'm a believer in it, but I also know the downfalls of it. And I wondered if there were any dedicated agents for Springdale, or if you get whoever you get, because frankly, I don't think that the people at the other end of that line will know the city and our residents and our businesses like we know them here. I know there's trade-offs, and that may be one of them, but that is one thing that is of concern for me. Another thing is, how often are receipts submitted to us? I mean, do we have a weekly, a monthly? How do we get our money? Because if someone pays here, we have it in our hands right that very moment. Also, if someone pays, let's say online or over the phone with an agent, is there a fee charge for use of a credit card? I'm assuming there is. We charge here, the city, so I'm assuming that that's still on the line for people to pay that way. And then I did hear that I know we're not eliminating our tax department entirely, but I'm just wondering if people are still going to be able to walk in and have their taxes prepared. I see a lot of nodding heads. That's a good thing. And also, how long is the contract? Should we enter into this with the city, with Rita? I'll wait till I've got one more question. And also, lastly, I know that there's an expense for this, but there's also income that would come from this. But will there also be an offset by reductions of staff? Thank you.
Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Ms. McNair. It's nice to have you here, and you don't have to read anything. That's a plus, too.
We did try to ask her. She refused 3 different times to do the readings today.
So starting towards the back of some of your questions, concerns, there's not going to be a change with regard to our tax department in terms of personnel staff. No one's going to lose their job. We currently have 2 positions that are open that have not been filled, but we're not going to decrease our staff. People will still be able to come in here just like they have at any other point in time and file their taxes, ask questions, what have you. That's all still going to be available. If someone says, I want to file here, they can do that here. If somebody wants to go file online, then they have that option to do that as well. We're not going to change the service that we provide. And sort of as it's referenced, somebody would not know if they're just coming in doing their taxes here normally that anything had changed. Sort of as I alluded to, and Brian had said, this first process is to get into the position to be accepted with regard to Rita, and then we would have a contract that we would go through after that that's going to have some of those details. I don't want anyone to hold our money for any longer than anyone needs to in the process of collecting it for us. We would look at things in terms of, are there consequences if someone was not paying this back as they should be in a timely manner? But that's something we haven't gotten to that point, because the process would be there has to be an approval to even get to that scenario. I think what Mr. Ewell's indicating through some of his comments are, it's not a new entity, which is a good thing. Somebody has to go first for everything. It doesn't matter what it is, but we're not pioneers into this area with these individuals. So that's something that takes away some pause, and that it's been successfully proven. But at the same time, we have to make sure that it works for us. And if at any point in time it doesn't, then we would step away from that, using that as a tool. But it really is not a giving up necessarily of any quality that we have. It's more of looking at, there's an opportunity for us to be able to use this as a tool to get in some more of those dollars that we may be missing out on through not having those resources. And when you look at the percentage cost versus what it is that we would anticipate being able to get back, we're ahead a considerable amount. But I always appreciate your input, what you have to say, as well as Mr. Knox and Mayor Webster, particularly from the role that you guys have been in for the city in the past. Those are all things that if council decides to allow things to move forward, that is going to go into consideration with regard to contract review going forward. They're all very valid points. Thank you.
Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for coming in and expressing your comments. And I tried to write them down so I could answer appropriately. Should council choose to move forward, council still maintains ultimate control over our tax code. So our tax code will supersede anything that RITA would put out. Now, RITA has been a great sounding board. They've looked at our tax code and they've given us recommendations on some things that we can improve in our tax code that we can adopt later. So, but ultimately, we still maintain the control over our tax code. As far as financial reports are concerned, we have the ability to log into the system and run reports in real time. So we can extract the data. We'll know exactly what's being collected. We'll know exactly we'll see exactly what they see. There's nothing we won't have access to. As far as the contract length in and of itself, once the city would sign on as a partner, we're in the contract with them, and all we have to do is give them notice that we want to withdraw. So if it's something that we end up doing for 2026, and we realize it's not working the way we need it to, we have the ability to provide them notice, and then we maintain our tax department, rehire the backfill the 2 positions that are currently vacant to move forward. And as far as the call center employees are there to provide guidance through the online filing process. And what I would encourage anyone to do, just like they have for years here, is call our folks here at the tax department. They'll be able, again, they're going to look at the same screens that the call center folks are. Our hours are just a little bit different from the extended hours that RITA would have to offer. But I would highly encourage anyone that has specific questions here in the city just to call our tax department, as they always have, and we can walk them through the process.
Great, thank you.
So, is there anything I missed on that?
I'll catch you tomorrow
Okay.
if there's anything else I had. There was been some talk about having online filing.
Correct.
Is that only going to be through RITA, or will that be on our website?
So that goes through RITA's secure portal.
Okay.
So yeah,
All
but
right.
we'll have a link to that on our site to make sure that we help direct people there.
Great, thank you.
All right, the floor is still open for communications from the audience. If anyone else would like to address council.
Good evening. My name is Charlotte Jenkins. I live at 676 Cedar Hill Drive, and thank you for having an opportunity to speak. Just briefly, I want to backtrack a little bit. We've been here in the community since 1998, and we've always felt we were very fortunate to live here. It's been very beautiful, very well kept. We felt like the people in the community and the council are doing a good job keeping the city safe. Our kids grew up here. They went to Princeton. They're doing bang-up jobs in the world. They're all doing great education. But just recently, I feel like the neighborhood's going down. I feel like we have, homes in the community that are not keeping up the beautification of the neighborhood. We have a house next door to me, 678, that is a renter's, and it looks like it's about to fall down. Literally, the roofing, I'm pretty upset about it, actually, because I hate to see the neighborhood go down. We have 2 houses around the corner, right off of Greencastle and Harcourt, right there on the corner. There's boarded up windows, there's screens that are busted out, and there's scrap metal. So it's starting, I've never seen that in the community before, and it's been there for a little bit of a while. I've seen the building inspector drive through a lot, but I don't see anything getting done, so I'm speaking up about it, and I don't like the squiggly lines, the crack ceiling. Don't like that at all. I've never seen that in the community before. I'm just wondering, how much do we as people who live in the community, how much say do we have about how our streets look? You know, I prefer the smooth, dark pavement, not the squiggly lines. And by the way, over there by the mall, used to be Tri-County Mall, the squiggly lines there, at night you cannot see what lane you're in. So they've not, and that's been like that for a few years now. So I'm surprised they haven't had accidents. So I just want to know, you know, what can be done about keeping the community nice and beautiful. And by the way, thank you for Alice, the little girl that did that was a breath of fresh air. Thank you for that, because I am about beautification too. I love that, and we should have more of her. If we could get together and get the people to stop using insecticides, then we'll have more pollinators, bees, hummingbirds, all of that. Maybe we can get her on that committee. So I just.
All right, Ms. Jenkins, I know a couple comments I have too, and I know administration probably does too. First, thank you for coming in and sharing your thoughts on the community. I actually drove through Beacon Hills yesterday. It's funny that you mentioned the 678, because I had made notes of a few houses.
It's Oxford Hills?
Yeah, I started in Oxford Hills, then I drove over to Beacon Hills and drove some of those streets just to see what was going on. One of the committees that council had formed, it's been almost a year and a half now, I think, was the Rental Program Committee. And one of the things we talked about in there was around home maintenance and property maintenance. Yeah. And out of that committee, we created an ordinance for nuisance property and helping with, and then also adjusted our notices to community members, let them know, hey, maybe you need to do a little bit more to fix these sort of visible things. Right. So I know a couple of those houses I've got on my list that are actually, I think, have open cases already. It just takes a little bit of time, especially with rental properties, to find the right person to get the notice to and then get them addressed. Okay. But if you have specific ones that you're thinking about, you can always call the building department or administration during business hours and share those.
I did already.
I just want to make sure we track them.
Right, and then they did say there's a portal or something where you can actually follow to see how that's the maintenance or the improvements are coming along. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah, so on the city website, there's inside Public Works, there's the iWorks portal, and you can create actual notices of issues, and you can submit those directly to Public Works, and you can also track those. I did have a lot of questions about the crack seal that we were educated on tonight. The picture that he showed us was like one line and others, but if you drive through at least the Oxford Hill side, you see it's a lot more than that. And what I know Public Works shared when I had raised that concern as well was because this was the first time we did crack seal in those streets, because they were new from the years prior, it looks more visible and noticeable now than you would see if it was Cape sealed after 5 years, and that's supposed to fade. But your question of, do residents have a say? Yes, you absolutely have a say.
Like before they do something like that.
But a lot of that is the maintenance programs that Public Works puts together. So sharing your view of how it works like you did tonight is something that council gets and administration hears, and we kind of adjust our plans based on that feedback. So I know that feedback is useful, and I know you're not the only person that has raised concerns about the crack seal and the number of cracks that were sealed. There's a lot of tar on some of those roads.
Yeah.
I know I've got some of the tar in my tires still, so I took some of it with me. So thank you for sharing those. I would encourage you, though, as you see those maintenance issues, do share them with the city, because sometimes it takes time, but I want to make sure they get tracked. Mayor Hawkins, did you have something to add?
Thank you, Mr. President. And we spoke.
We did.
And so, as I told you, come to let folks know what's going on. There's times where the building department may already have a property on the list like we talked about, but please call to make sure, because if it's one where it's a new issue that's not been addressed, it's important to call and put that on their radar. So that's the main thing. Again, you're always welcome to come. I'm glad you guys came, but again, you guys know you can call as you have. I think you feel comfortable.
Right, yeah, and we appreciate you. You did, my husband told me you did call back. We appreciate that. We feel heard. So just so I understand, though, for the homes that are rentals, and a lot of times the people that are renting are not responsible for the roofing and that kind of thing. So we've been looking at that house next door to us for a few years. And whose responsibility is it to make sure that the owners of the fix that?
Yeah, they'll be cited. The people that are the owners of the home, they're the property owners, they've got that responsibility. So they'll get cited to address those things. And also in terms of impact and input, you and your husband are part of the reason why I asked to have, I got other calls too with regard to street, but that's part of the reason why we had the presentation that Mr. McKinney did, because there have been calls from not just you guys, but other residents. And so it's a demonstration that you guys are heard, all residents are heard, and we're trying to get information out so people are well informed. Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
But it shouldn't be years, right? So if you see it for years, that's a different problem. We should talk about that too.
Okay.
But whose responsibility to chase down that owner? It's not yours as the neighbor. It's our responsibility, and we track them down through the business department. We've gone downtown and had to search records. The law director has been involved in some cases, so it just takes time.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank
Mr.
you.
Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. If your information is down on that sheet there, we'll have the building official reach out to you tomorrow and talk to you specifically about some of those properties. As President Anderson said, a lot of those properties are probably already in progress, but she'll be at least able to tell you kind of where those are in the process. Some of the ones that are belabored and may be going on for a long time may already have an active case in mayor's court, and it may be getting continued for a variety of reasons. I mean, for a while there, it was, problems with getting materials and people to do the work and whatnot. But nonetheless, if you'll be available tomorrow in the daytime, we can have her reach out to you.
Okay.
And then kind of give you an update on where things are at, just so you kind of know the status of things and have an expectation of when you'll see some resolve.
So do they have a time limit though? So if there's a case that's ongoing, how long before they actually will have to do something definite like?
Sure. So each case is unique. Some of the simple property maintenance issues have a shorter lifespan that the building inspector gives the property owner. Some of the ones that are a little more involved that are, may be gutters or shutters or something like that impacting the resident itself, that may be a little bit of longer lead time because of materials, contractors, and whatnot. So there's no definitive amount for each one. So we try and use a reasonableness standard on applying.
Which would be, what would you think the time for us as people that have to look at that? Like 5 years?
So it definitely shouldn't be that long, but the inspectors try to work with the homeowners, because our biggest thing, we're not looking to penalize, we're looking for compliance. We're hoping to get the compliance from the property owner to make sure it looks nice for the residents and the homeowners around them who are taking care of their properties, because it's not fair. And we understand that. And unfortunately, some of the processes don't work at the speed that the neighbors would necessarily like, or that the rest of the city would like to see who drive by it. But it's normally in progress and in process to get resolved. But we do, again, give a little bit of time to apply some reasonableness to get that compliance. But again, we'll follow up with you to make sure that we get all your questions answered.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Still have one more comment for you. This has touched a nerve. Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad to hear your comments. I have been, for lack of better description, the town crier, screaming about rental properties and issues associated with them. I formed a committee 2 years ago. We have gone through, and I'm in Heritage Hill, and right now we are in the neighborhood of a 25% rental.
Wow.
So I feel your pain, and I have been preaching and warning that it's going to visit other neighborhoods. Know that we're putting pressure, and know that we're not done with it. But it is, it's something that's near and dear to my heart. I've listened to complaints for a while. Actually, some of the action I brought up to prior administration probably about 15 years ago, and politely got blown off. So the good news is we have taken action. We have some work in process, and it is a hot button. And if you want to reach out to me, I have no problem.
Okay.
It's it's one of my hot buttons too. But I'm
Well, maybe we can join forces and get something done because I don't want to take a lot of time, but I'm from a community in Detroit, Michigan. You might have heard of it. It's the Boston Edison historical area. I just visited there. I had a friend, a childhood friend whose husband died, so I was there. But they are in the process of building up that whole community, and the house that I lived in went for $440,000, and they're not even done. You're going to have houses in that community worth $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
That's so that we'd like to see it go up rather than down because we all win. You know, it's better for everyone involved.
Well,
so
your
I
house is
appreciate
probably
it.
your largest asset and your largest
Yes,
investment.
I'd like to reap some benefits if I decide
Exactly.
to.
No.
I don't
Well,
want it
thank
to be
you.
Thank you
for
so
taking
much.
time and
I appreciate
expressing your concerns.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the floor is still open. If anyone else would like to address council for any reason. Second call.
Good evening. I'm Doug Stahlgren, 704 Park Avenue. Jeff, David, hello. Some of the people I know up here, so I've been on a couple of different committees for a long time. I will reiterate my concern about property values, which my neighbor just said. That's a concern. I've lived in Springdale for more than 50 years. I've been on a couple of different commissions and so forth. Our biggest concern right now, and my neighbor's here with me, is safety. So we continue to see solicitation in our neighborhood. We think it's, well, number one, it's not it's unwarranted. It's not welcomed, and we continue to ask sometimes if they have registered, and we get different comments. So a couple things about, and again, I apologize that I haven't gone through the city's website to see what kind of documentation, what the process is. I know there is a process. What kind of documentation is required when someone comes to my door? I mean, I really don't want to put a sign in my front yard that says, it doesn't look good, to say, no solicitation. But that's what I want. And we've had instances where a couple of my neighbors, we've actually had, we called the police and said, hey, we think there's someone in our neighborhood that shouldn't be here. No one's responded. So that's another concern. So back to the kind of the policy, is there a do not knock list, I call it, where I can put my address on Springdale's website, and somebody who registers, and I assume when they have to register as someone that's coming to go door to door, whatever, that they would say, look, you can't go to this address. So that's another question I have, I guess. I guess those are, the primary concerns. Anything else? John, yeah, he's not going to come up here, but anyway. I got voluntold. I think that's primarily it. But yeah, again, it's just a safety concern. So, but.
Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll speak first, and I'm sure Mr. Ewell will fill in the blanks. First off, there is a solicitation process they have to go through. It includes a background check and includes them getting registered here. This is something we're talking about probably a month or two ago specifically. There was a resident in Beacon Hills that's a friend of mine that had someone come up in the middle of the day and knocked, and she said, do you have a license from the city? And the individual said, I don't need a license. The mayor said I can do this. I said, well, who's the mayor? He goes, I don't know, some black guy. So she chased him off the property. She called me. I had come home during the day, and so I called the administration with the information that I had. She got a photo of them. They weren't registered. I went out through my neighborhood, then went over to Beacon Hills. I found one individual, not the individual that she had seen, but from the same organization. Had the conversation with him. Do you have a license? No. First he thought he was in Fairfield. He said, our boss said we could be here. I said, you can't be here unless you have permission to be here through the licensing and the solicitation. He let the administration know where he was, went combing through Beacon and Oxford Hills, found another individual. I thought that was the individual that was in the photo that had referenced me. Thought it was better that I called the police than I deal with that individual based on how I felt. Police did come. They addressed that individual with regard to reminding him by law, you can't be here soliciting unless you have a license to do so. Again, an educational piece for him. Usually these are younger individuals, but there were at least 3 in Beacon and Oxford Hills that day. I never caught up to the one that was in question. A lot of times they're getting dropped off. They didn't even know where the heck they were. They thought they were in Fairfield. These were guys that were from out of state, so it is a concern. I think one was from North Carolina, one was from Texas. So there is a process that we have. What I encourage you to do is, if you encounter someone that comes to your door and you ask them if they have a license for solicitation, and they do not, that you please call either the police and/or the administrative office so we're aware of it and can address it. It's important and it's concerning, and that's why we have background checks for those things.
Are there any, I'm not sure, but are there any cities here in Cincinnati that have no solicitation at all? I'm just kind of wondering if this stuff happens in Indian Hill, Blue Ash, wherever. Or they're just like, no, that's not happening. There is no solicitation, period.
Mr. Braun?
I can address that. Every community has a slightly different solicitor's ordinance. We represent 14 communities, and I think all of them are different. We're not permitted to ever prohibit political speech and things like that. So when you ask, do they bar all solicitations? No. But what almost all communities do is they do place restrictions on commercial speech. Unfortunately, the United States Supreme Court says we can't bar it as a local government. However, some things that some of my communities have done is individual subdivisions can bar it, and through their HOA taking action and things like that. And as you pointed out, individual homeowners can do it with signs and things like that. So there are ways to do it, but as a government, we are slightly limited by some of the Supreme Court decisions. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I understand the political and religious stuff that they can do, but this is commercial stuff, so.
No.
Different.
Mr. Yule?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, our process is not an easy one to get through. I mean, there are several things that commercial vendors have to comply with, to include, as Mayor Hawkins said, a background check through Ohio BCI to verify that they don't have a criminal history, an application process, a bonding process, and then once they come into our offices here, we permit them, and then about a month and a half ago, we started issuing them, we've always issued them an ID, allowing them to show that or produce that when requested. Of late, we've been giving them a lanyard, and it's a yellow ID now that we've been producing, and we tell them they must wear this yellow lanyard, which has a photo ID, their name, and their company, and there's a red tag on it that says that they are a registered vendor or registered solicitor, so that they know, so that residents will know that they have gone through the proper steps with the city. But as Mayor Hawkins said too, I would encourage anyone who has if their spidey senses are tingling about a certain vendor, please give us a call. Our police department, anytime they are called, they do respond out. You may not always see them, and it may not be right away, but our police officers do respond out to those calls and investigate for solicitors. They would not
that's good to know that
out.
there's a new process with the lanyard and the photo ID and so forth. So
yeah,
now
we're
we can
trying to
clearly say, okay, wait, where's your photo ID? Where's this yellow ID? So
correct.
And otherwise, you better be out of my property.
Yeah, and a lot of this is in response, and I've been here a little over 5 years, and I think in the 5.5 or roughly 5 years I've been here, I think we've only had 1 or 2 commercial vendors come in to register as a solicitor, and for whatever reason, this summer we've had an extraordinary amount of vendors coming in to get registered. There was one about 6 weeks ago that had 40 different people that were going to be canvassing the city. And they all had the documentation. There was a couple things they weren't missing, so we held on to their permits and told them what they were missing to come into compliance, and then they ended up withdrawing their application. But it's because of input, from residents like you and some others that have said, hey, we want to make sure that these folks are registered and not have to ask or know what questions to ask to make sure. So, externally you'll see that lanyard, but also internally we've put all of our registered solicitors in a share file so that the police or building department or administration can access that file to see and know who is registered and who should be out there and who's not registered.
Great. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
One more comment. You also touched a nerve. Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming out. As Mr. Uhl said, I'd say probably back in June, we discussed this problem because it seemed to be like a season thing. There was people everywhere, all over the neighborhood. We had 2 people in our neighborhood selling the same thing. One of the things that we talked about was how do we communicate to the residents what to do. There's still to this day a lot of residents that don't know what to do. So what we have to do is find a way to get that information out, which you just heard tonight, to everybody else as time goes on for next summer or next spring that comes up, so we can eliminate this problem as much as possible. That's going to happen because we know how bad it is. And appreciate you coming out stating what you stated. Thanks.
Don't shoot them.
Please don't. Please call.
I'll run them down.
All right, thank you for coming in, Mr. Stahlgren.
Thanks.
All right, the floor is still open if anyone else would like to address council for any reason. Second call.
No comment, stolen property.
Thank you for returning our pen. I was going to have to check with the law director if you're allowed to speak twice in the same session. All right, third and final call. All right, the floor is now closed for communications with the audience. We will now move into ordinances resolutions. First up is ordinance number 30, 2025. It is the second reading. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 30, 2025, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with a regional council of governments for the purpose of administration and collection of municipal earnings tax in the city of Springdale, Ohio. Whereas the city of Springdale, Ohio, the city operates a tax department for the purpose of collection and administration of an earnings tax levied in accordance with Chapter 94 of the Springdale Code of Ordinances, and whereas the city desires to partner with an outside agency to administer the tax ordinances of the city and to act as its agent in the collection of taxes, and whereas the Regional Council of Governments was created pursuant to Chapter 167 of the Ohio Revised Code to foster cooperation between municipalities, and whereas the creation of the Regional Council of Governments was primarily to establish a central collection facility known as the Regional Income Tax Agency, RITA, for the purpose of administering the earnings tax laws of the various participating members, and whereas the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, the Council finds it to be in the best interests of the city to join the Regional Council of Governments for the purpose of having RITA administer the city's tax ordinances. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring, Section 1, that the mayor and city administrator are hereby authorized to enter into an agreement with a regional council of governments for the purpose of administration and collection of municipal earnings tax in the city of Springdale, Ohio, through the Regional Income Tax Agency, the agreement. Section 2, that the finance officer tax commissioner is hereby appointed as the city's representative to the regional council of governments, and the assistant city administrator is hereby designated as the alternate as required by the agreement. Section 3, the council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, that this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the second reading of ordinance number 30, 2025. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to piggyback on, thanks for everybody that came out and had comments about this, but one thing that gets lost in the sauce is the large amount of people in the city that are incredibly mobile, and they don't have the opportunity to just drive here to take care of those type of things. Some of them are gone for 2 to 3 months at a time, traveling nurses, people that way. this gives them an opportunity to stay current and not have to make special arrangements that may deter some of the jobs that they're doing. So this is just as basically extension to some of our residents that are moving into the city and move here and live here now that are incredibly mobile. It'll help them be able to take care of their affairs in a very easy way. That's all I have.
Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, we go through an application process. If we're accepted, then we have a contract, correct? Yes. Are we going to approve that contract, or is this a blanket ordinance that is covering both?
Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, this gives the mayor and myself the authority to enter into that agreement.
So this would give you the opportunity to do that. This isn't approving a contract because we don't have one. This simply gives you the authority to do it, assuming it meets the criteria that we've discussed.
Correct.
Ms. Webster.
Thank you. How lucky this community is to have 3 former finance directors come to this meeting worrying about the city's finances. I think that's great. With all due respect, Mr. Hawkins, you don't want to close the tax department, but we all know and have lived through it. People take over things and, oh no, we're not cutting anybody. Everybody will have their job. And the next thing you know, the thing is closed and nobody has their job. I will be voting against this ordinance. Thank you.
Ms. McFarland.
Thank you, Mr. President. So if we approve this tonight, sorry if I'm repeating Mr. Vanover's comment, we will see the contract at a later time. We will not. That will be up to you two to make that decision. Will there be any discussion regarding all of the concerns that have been brought forward tonight?
Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you're asking to provide council a copy of that agreement, if we're accepted from the Regional Council of Governments and address some of the things that a lot of the questions have already been answered through the presentation that we had last week. So none of these are real new questions. Again, some of the estimations that they give for what they would retain by way of collection is the only thing that's variable, but they try to give us a good range based upon, it's based off of a percentage, so it's not an exact number right now. But if you're asking for some additional information or to see what that agreement would look like, that's definitely something that we can push to council as soon as it's received.
Ms. Sullivan-Weiscup.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know that I've gotten a lot of calls through the years of people who want to be able to file online. And I want to make sure that I'm understanding exactly what we're saying is that we are not going to offer, if we did not go through this, if it was just the City of Springdale Tax Department, RETA was not part of the equation, we're not offering that to any of our citizens without the partnership of RETA, correct?
Mr. Yule.
Correct. We would have to add on specific modules to our existing software. So the software has the capabilities, we would have to buy into those modules year over year.
So we'd have to continually pay for a service just like we're paying RETA, same kind of thing basically, right?
Correct.
Okay. My friend actually lives in Loveland. She used to live in Springdale, and she was talking about how much she loved that they use RETA because it was so convenient for her. She was able to file online. She's able to know everything. And I asked her a lot of questions about her experience because I wanted to make sure as we were going to this, what are the advantages and disadvantages? And her biggest thing was that she can call her city as well, but she can call RETA and they have all the answers for her, and it's kind of convenient. So I thought that that was nice hearing it firsthand from someone who's actually lived through it, who used to do taxes here and now does taxes through RETA. That was a kind of big eye-opener. I did have a question. I know that Mayor Webster had brought up confidentiality problems. Have there been any problems with RETA reported as far as confidentiality or breaches?
No, we have none of those have been brought up in conversation with RETA, and we've talked extensively about their security practices.
Thank you.
Mr.
Just
Jacob.
to,
Oh,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry. Go ahead, Mr.
just to piggyback on one of the things, several employees for the city, they file through Rita as well. One of the things we were really concerned about is the level of customer service, because we wouldn't want to transition to something and not have a good customer service base. And they have all been very supportive, and they said that their process in filing is very quick. One of our employees said he filed on behalf of his wife and was able to do so from his phone. So he says it's very convenient. And I know a lot of the people who come into the city building around tax time, sometimes they're waiting around for 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes, and they're just here to make a payment. A lot of that payment can all get processed online without having to make a trip and wait. So, but yeah, the customer service base was one of the things we were really concerned about, asking some other city managers on their experiences. And one of the quotes from a neighboring jurisdiction was, "I wish I would have gone to it years sooner."
Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know that, for example, SwimSafe, that contract is not at all similar to this, but I do notice that the SwimSafe contract comes back to council each year. If we vote yes, then administration would agree to a contract without coming back. Would there be an annual revisit for council, or would it be fully up to administration a year from now, 2 years from now, on whether you remain with this service or not?
Mr. Braun.
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, I think, and to answer as well, Councilmember McFarland's question, I think everybody's been taking notes as to the things that people have concerns. If you approve this tonight, it won't come back to you for approval, but that doesn't mean that the folks sitting up here won't review the contract and take into consideration all the points that have been made. We can address those. If you're specifically wanting us to limit our participation and have a renewal after a year or 2 years, I'm sure Mr. Yule can check with them to see if there's a minimum amount of time we have to commit to, but we could certainly try to build that in so there isn't an automatic renewal, and that way you would have the ability to weigh in if you're receiving comments from residents.
Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Jacobs, in terms of your question, council still is going to be who's going to make financial decisions in terms of the budget. So if council's sitting there going at some point in time, we don't want those fees for Rita to go into the budget, then there's going to be an issue in terms of not being able to go on and continue with that process. So there's always control, and these are the checks and balances. Again, we've said it multiple times. I'll say it again, as it's been intimated. We're not firing anybody. We're not going to shut down the tax department. I can't say it enough times, but that's the reality. If someone doesn't believe me, they don't have to believe me, but that's what it is.
Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. 2 questions. A cancellation clause. What time frame is there?
Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. We haven't discussed what that is, but they don't lock anyone into any duration of time. They don't need to recoup any money for anything. The software is what it is. So I think we would just provide them notice that we would be done at a particular date. So if we go through 6, 7, 8 months and decide this is not for us, this is not working out, and we're hearing nothing but complaints, we just give them notice and start our migration process of data that they have collected thus far back over into our system.
Okay, and the follow-up question, who, I guess the question or the term would be chartered the creation of the Regional Council of Governments?
I'm sorry, Mr. Second question.
You might
there.
need to restate that question.
Who was, what entity chartered the creation of that Regional Council of Governments?
I don't know that I have that information off the top of my head. Do you have more? Yeah. Mr. Braun may have some more information.
Yeah, I can explain. My understanding of RETA is it's a COG, or a Council of Governments, which is we have the right to enter into through Ohio statute. So Ohio statute gives us the ability to form one. I don't know who, it was originally formed by some community or some local entity of the government. I don't know who it was. But I will point out that Mr. Yule's correct. RETA does have a board of directors, just as Maverma does with our carrier, or there are other entities out there across the state. But I don't know who the original founder was. But we're permitted to enter into this. I don't even know if we do reference it in there, the ORC in Chapter 167. So that allows us by statute to do this, if you approve it.
Still in questions and discussion? All right, I will just add that I know I was very suspicious when this first came out because it reminded me of the discussions we had years ago about Ohio collecting taxes. And it wasn't until I looked at the financials that administration provided that showed the cost saving in terms of backfill, the additional capability the residents get without turning down or changing the hands-on service that people can get through administration here, that turned me a little bit towards wanting to do this. To me, it felt more like it's just additional modern capability that our residents can use but don't have to use, which is why I think it makes sense, especially since the finances make sense. I would want to make sure that when we get around to budgeting next year that we take a look at how much of that tax recouping that we had estimated actually comes to be. That was one of the more convincing arguments for me, is that we simply, as a small city in Ohio, don't have the ability to reach out to some of these business owners or rental home owners to find ways to find out what resources they have outside of Ohio. So the ability to get to federal databases to reclaim taxes are owed is one of the big draws for me in this, in addition to the online capability that residents have. I know when I come here to file my taxes in the middle of April, it's very busy. It'd be nice to just be able to file it like we do online with our state and with the U.S. government, with the Ohio. So I just certainly support the change, understanding the concern that you've heard tonight about the controls and the contract. Since we're not looking at it, we're trusting you if it passes to make sure that those are addressed. I don't feel like a software change is the biggest thing the city's ever going to do. So this is just additional capability that is available, and I hear administration feeling comfortable with the security side of it. I know we've talked a lot about the controls they have on the back end. The representatives here talked about the audits that they go through, both third party and from the IRS, and those help me understand how they're going to maintain our information. So I certainly support that, but just understand that if it does move forward, just know that we're nervous. So hopefully the contract controls can help with that. All right, seeing no more lights, at this point, Ms. Pratt, if you poll council on ordinance number 30, 2025.
Mr. Vanover?
No.
Mrs. Webster?
No.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mrs. Salomaiska?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 30, 2025 passes with 5 affirmative votes.
Told you.
If we could limit the outbursts. Next up, we have ordinance number 35, 2025. This does have the emergency clause. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 35, 2025, an ordinance accepting a bid and authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with Dry Cast Piping Corporation for the Springdale Community Center HVAC Replacement Phase 2 project and declaring an emergency. Whereas the 2025 budget, including funding in the amount of $416,000 for the Springdale Community Center HVAC Replacement Phase 2 project, and whereas the city of Springdale, the city, advertised for bids for the project and sealed bids were open on August 8th, 2025. And whereas the city has reviewed the bids and determined the best and lowest bid for the project was submitted by Dry Cast Piping Corp. For the base bid in the amount of $337,500. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the City of Springdale City Council, the Council, finds the bid submitted by Dry Cast Piping Corp. In the amount of $337,500 to be the best and lowest bid submitted for the Springdale Community Center HVAC Replacement Phase 2 project. Section 2, that the mayor and city administrator are hereby authorized to enter into an agreement with Dry Cast Piping Corporation in the amount of $337,500 for the project. Section 3, that the finance officer tax commissioner is hereby authorized to pay Dry Cast Piping Corporation a sum not to exceed $337,500 for the project. Section 4, the council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council, and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 5, that this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law. Section 6, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for said declaration of emergency is the need to execute the agreement immediately in order to complete the work in a timely manner for the prices quoted and maintain the project timeline.
Council, you've heard the reading of ordinance number 35, 2025. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, Ms. Bright, if you poll council.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mrs. Solomizka?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 35, 2025 passes with 7 affirmative votes. All right, next we'll move on to ordinance number 36, 2025. This is the first reading, but can be acted on tonight when we get to that point. Mr. Jacobs?
Ordinance number 36, 2025, adopting a supplemental appropriation estimated receipts ordinance to adjust appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures and adjust estimated receipts for the city of Springdale, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025. Whereas the city of Springdale needs to make supplemental appropriations to adjust appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures and adjusted estimated receipts for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that in order to provide for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Springdale for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025, the following sums be and are hereby set aside and appropriated as adjusted. The legal level of budgetary control for annual appropriation purposes is as follows. The general fund at the department level, personal service expenditures and all other expenditures. All other funds at the fund level, personal service expenditures and all other expenditures. Also, that in order to provide for the current budgeted receipts, estimated receipts are hereby adjusted for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025. Section 2, that additional appropriations be made to the following funds. General Fund 010, 085, and 086, Police Department. Personal service expenditures, $17,048. Other expenditures, $15,680. Fire Department, personal services expenditures, $12,551. Other expenditures, $61,200. Health Department, personal services expenditures, $2,322. Other expenditures, $3,200. Parks and Recreation Department, personal services expenditures, $5,444. Other expenditures, $55,656. Building Department, personal services expenditures, $3,577. Other expenditures, $7,900. Public Works Department, personal services expenditures, $3,985. Other expenditures, $2,041. Administration Department, personal services expenditures, $2,630. Economic Development Department, personal services expenditures, $6,988. Other expenditures, $665. Finance Department, personal services expenditures, $1,287. Other expenditures, $64,274. Tax Department, personal services expenditures, $1,737. Other expenditures, $40,931. General Fund 010, 085, and 086 total, $309,116. Street Maintenance Fund 061, other expenditures, $8,000. Grants Fund 070, other expenditures, $76,420. Capital Improvements Fund 090, other expenditures, $434,881. OBBS Assessment Fund 097, other expenditures, $5,500. Section 3, that estimated receipts be increased to the following funds. General Fund, $241,600. Grants Fund, $206,876. Law Enforcement Training Fund, $37,707. Capital Improvements Fund, $438,151. Residential Recycling Fund, $2,500. OBBS Assessment Fund, $5,500. Section 4, that the Finance Officer Tax Commissioner is hereby authorized to draw warrants for payments from any of the foregoing appropriations upon receiving proper certificates approved by the mayor or city administrator or upon effectiveness of an ordinance of council to make the expenditures, provided that no warrants shall be drawn or paid for salaries or wages except to persons employed by authority of and in accordance with law or ordinance. Provided further that the appropriations for contingencies can only be expended upon approval of 2/3 vote of council for items of expense constituting a legal obligation against the city and for purposes other than those covered by the other specific appropriations herein made. Section 5, that it is found and determined that all formal actions of this council concerning and relating to the adoption of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees that resulted in such formal action wherein meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code and the rules of this council adopted in accordance therewith. Section 6, that this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the reading of ordinance number 36, 2025. It is an appropriation ordinance and can be acted on tonight. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Moved and seconded. Question or discussion? See none. Ms. Bowdy, if you'll poll council.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mrs. Seldom-Iskop?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 36, 2025 passes with 7 affirmative votes. Next, we'll move on to ordinance number 37, 2025. This is a first reading. Mr. Jacobs.
Ordinance number 37, 2025, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute an addendum to the current agreement between the city of Springdale and Swim Safe Pool Management Incorporated. Whereas with the adoption of ordinance number 08, 2024, the city of Springdale, the city, entered into an agreement with Swim Safe Pool Management Incorporated for the management, operation, and maintenance of the swimming pools located at the Springdale Community Center. And whereas with the adoption of ordinance number 51, 2024, the city executed an addendum to the original agreement for an additional 1-year term. And whereas the city and Swim Safe Pool Management Incorporated desired to continue their existing relationship by executing a new addendum to extend the agreement for an additional 3 years. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the mayor and city administrator are hereby authorized to execute an addendum to the current agreement with Swim Safe Pool Management Incorporated for the management, operation, and maintenance of the swimming pools located at the Springdale Community Center, the addendum. A copy of the addendum is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, that the Finance Officer Tax Commissioner is hereby directed to pay Swim Safe Pool Management Incorporated according to the fees and payment schedule set forth in the addendum. Section 3, the council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council, and if its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with the applicable legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, that this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law.
Council, this was the first reading of ordinance number 38, 2025. Any questions or discussion this evening? Mr. Jacobs.
I think the question would be best for Cole, if he was here tonight. Do we have any information on the lifeguards this year as compared to the ones last year in terms of returning staff? In other words, were we able to hire mostly the same people? I know we can't control whether they applied or not, but I didn't know how the character of the staff may have changed, if at all.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have the exact answer for you, but we can ask Mr. Wilson to see if he can provide some of that. I do know there were a lot of returning faces this year back at the pool, so yeah, but we'll try and figure out what the returning percentage was.
Any other questions or discussion? I'd see none. We'll see this at our next meeting. All right, next up on the agenda is ordinance number 38, 2025. It is a first reading. Mr. Jacobs.
Ordinance number 38, 2025, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated for waste collection and recycling services. Whereas the city of Springdale, the city, participated in the 2025 Southwest Ohio Regional Refuse Consortium invitation to bid for the collection, transportation, and delivery for disposal or processing of residential solid waste and recyclable material. And whereas Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated was determined to be the best and most responsive bidder for waste collection and recycling services. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the bid of Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated for waste collection and recycling services is determined to be the best and most responsive bid received and is hereby accepted. Section 2, that the mayor and city administrator are hereby authorized to enter into an agreement with Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated for waste collection and recycling services in the city according to the specifications set forth by the Southwest Ohio Regional Refuse Consortium, the agreement. A copy of the agreement is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 3, that the Finance Officer Tax Commissioner is hereby directed to pay Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated according to the rate set forth in accordance with the agreement. Section 4, the council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council, and if its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 5, this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law.
Council, this was the first reading of ordinance number 38, 2025. Questions or discussion this evening? Right. Seeing none, we will see this again at our next meeting. All right, next up on the agenda, we have ordinance number 39, 2025. It is a first reading. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 39, 2025, an ordinance amending section 153.252F6C and creating section 153.252F6D of the Springdale Code of Ordinances, regulating the keeping of bees in residential areas. Whereas section 153.252F6C of the Springdale Code of Ordinances regulates the keeping of bees in residential areas, and whereas council seeks to revise the regulations regarding the keeping of bees in residential areas of the city. And whereas council held a public hearing regarding this amendment in 2025, and Planning Commission has reviewed the matter and recommended approval.
Excuse me.
Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that section 153.252F6C of the Springdale Code of Ordinances shall be amended in relevant part to remove references to bees as follows. F6C, husbandry of fowl and rabbits shall be regulated as follows. 1, fowl and rabbits may be raised or kept for a residence owner's use on a lot of no less than 3 acres of area. 2, the structure containing such use shall be located not less than 100 feet from all adjacent residential lot lines. Section 2, that section 153.252F6D of the Springdale Code of Ordinances is hereby adopted to establish new regulations regarding the keeping of bees in residential areas of the city in the form attached as Exhibit A, which is incorporated herein by reference. Section 3, that this council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council, and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be effective from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
Council, this was the first reading of ordinance number 39, 2025. Questions or discussion this evening? Ms. Sullivan-Weisskopf.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would say that this is a really well-timed ordinance, given Alice's new pollination garden that she planted back at Ross Park. I think this is a great idea because bees are becoming extinct, and if we don't have bees, we don't have life. So I'm a proponent for bees. And like I said, with the growing idea of pollination gardens, I think this is going to be a good way to help people clean up their residences as well, because they'll want to feed their bees. Thank you.
Other questions or discussion? And I don't know if Ms. Sullivan-Weisskopf or Ms. McFarland want to share any feedback that came from Planning Commission. This was an item that was already reviewed by Planning and sent back with unanimous approval. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so we did review it at, I don't remember which meeting, the last meeting, and they presented a few concerns to us. We did reevaluate that from the Urban Farming Committee and represented a few changes to the Planning Commission, and that was approved unanimously to present to council as written.
Thank you. It was a lot of work that went into it, so thank you for taking it this far. Any other questions or discussion? All right. Seeing none, we will see this again at our next meeting. All right, that's the end of ordinances and resolutions. Next up, we have the agenda item we added, 9A, executive session. Ms. Sullivan-Weisskopf.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to go into executive session under Article 2D1 for the Springdale Charter to discuss economic development issues.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion about moving into executive session? Administration, do we expect action out of the session? See no other lights. Ms. Brown, if you poll council on moving to executive session.
Mrs. Sullivan-Weisskopf.
Aye.
Mr. Vanover.
Aye.
Mr. Cleaves.
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster. Aye. Ms. McFarland.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye. Council is in executive session. We will return. All right, council has returned from executive session. We're on to old business. Is there any old business that anyone on council or administration would like to bring forward this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Is there any new business anyone on council or administration would like to bring forward this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to meetings and announcements. Ms. Sullivan-Weisskopf.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning Commission has been canceled for this month due to no applications. So our next meeting will be in these chambers on October 14th.
Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board of Zoning Appeals is scheduled to meet in these chambers at 7 p.m. September 23rd.
Ms. McFarland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Board of Health will resume session starting next Thursday, September 11th, in these chambers at 6:30.
Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder, if you're free, next Monday, September the 8th at 4 p.m., come join Alice for her ribbon cutting at 4 p.m. at Ross Park.
Ms. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Civil Service Commission will meet tomorrow, September 4th at 2 p.m., adjacent to these chambers.
Any other meetings and announcements? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to communications from the audience. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to address council for any reason, this is your second and final opportunity this evening. Simply come forward to the podium, state your name and address, and you have up to 5 minutes to speak to council. At this point, the floor is open for communications from the audience. Second call. Third and final call. All right, I'm closing communications from the audience. And next we'll move on to a recap of legislative items and legislation still in development. Mr. Jacobs.
Council, as you review your legislative summary, item 1 was addressed by an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with the Regional Council of Governments for the purpose of administration and collection of municipal earnings tax in the city of Springdale, Ohio. That was ordinance 30/2025, receiving a second reading and 5 affirmative votes. Item 2, an ordinance accepting a bid and authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with Dry Cast Piping Corporation for the Springdale Community Center HVAC Replacement Phase 2 project and declaring an emergency, was addressed by ordinance 35/2025, receiving 7 affirmative votes. Item 3, an ordinance adopting supplemental appropriations and estimated receipts to adjust appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures and adjust estimated receipts for the city of Springdale, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025. Was addressed by ordinance 36/2025, receiving 1 reading and 7 affirmative votes. In development, we have item 4, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute an addendum to the current agreement between the city of Springdale and Swim Safe Pool Management Incorporated. That was addressed by ordinance 37/2025, receiving a first reading. Item 5, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with Rumpke of Ohio Incorporated for waste collection and recycling services, was addressed by ordinance 38/2025, receiving a first reading. Item 6, an ordinance amending section 153.252 F6C and creating section 153.252 F6D of the Springdale Code of Ordinances regulating the keeping of bees in residential areas, was addressed by ordinance 39/2025, also receiving a first reading. Item 7, a resolution adopting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor, will receive a first reading at our next meeting on September 1st. And that's all I have unless there's anything forthcoming.
Council administration, have anything else to add? All right, seeing none, all that's left before us is item 16.
Move to adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.